Hey D&D fam, I'm Quick.
And I'm Lee, and you're listening to
Divas and Ducats. So what is a diva? I think divas get a bad rep, but to me, diva is all about the attitude.
As for ducats, it's your finances, your assets, Skrilla, guap, your coin. We're talking all things with the potential to affect your pockets.
And while we're attorneys by trade, we are divas by choice. Divas and Ducats is for edutainment purposes.
Y'all, we are not Series 511 or 703 professionals. This does not create a financial advisor or attorney-client relationship. The views expressed here are solely our opinions and the opinions of our guests.
It's just our opinions, y'all. Okay, divas, let's talk ducats.
Hey D&D fam, welcome back. We are excited you're here. If you are watching on YouTube, make sure you click subscribe below. We have a very exciting topic today on our Diva docket. We're going to be talking about franchising and just how to make that a means if you're interested in another stream of income, because a 9-to-5 is fine, but it is not the only vehicle of wealth. And if you are able to, you should have other things going on, because just in case, you never know what's going to happen, right? But first, we're going to have a word for our sponsors, and then we're going to get into it. So
this episode is sponsored by the Wood & Bowers Law Firm. Civil rights laws protect individuals from unlawful infringement upon the right to work, unlawful search and seizures, and even from discriminatory and retaliatory acts at your places of business. We all have the right to be treated equally. So if you think you have been discriminated against, you can call 704-665-5838 or visit wbvlaw.com for a complimentary assessment of your case. We have had one of the attorneys on a previous episode discussing wills in 2020, so you can check that out as well, and get a little bit more information about the Wood & Bowers firm. The information will be in our show notes below, so if you're on YouTube, just click that arrow and then drop down, and Wood & Bowers information will be on there. If you go to our website, you can subscribe to our newsletter, and when a new episode comes out, you will get that information, and the Wood & Bowers logo will be in there, so you can also, it's directly hyperlinked to their website, so you don't have to kind of try to recall this information. So if you have any of those civil rights issues, they are definitely a great firm to have to try to check out in the Charlotte, North Carolina area.
Yes. All right. So let's get into it. So today we have Mr. Cameo here to talk about just his experience with franchising and get some of his insights. So welcome, Cameo. Tell us a little bit about yourself and just what you do.
Yeah, absolutely. Name's Cameo Crumby. I own Mr. Franchise Guy. It's a franchise consulting firm. I'm originally from Akron, Ohio. I moved down to Charlotte in 2005. I have 4 college degrees under my belt, all business related. I just knew, even with those degrees, I knew I didn't want to go into corporate America. But at the same time, I wanted that education, and I knew that I had to go to corporate America or get a decent job to save up the money I needed to invest in my own business. So I saved up. I was working a full-time job and part-time jobs on top of that. So I saved up every last penny and invested in the franchise, and quit my job after I invested in my franchise, and the rest is history.
And so I think even that is interesting, because I'm sure when you were getting those degrees, the fact that you always had an entrepreneur mindset, and that you went through those jobs and saved up, like, where did that come from? Was it an upbringing thing, or do you just, like, where did that mindset come from?
I don't know if it was an upbringing, because a lot of my family members are not entrepreneurs. It was a mentality, something that was in me. I remember when I was 7 years old, I grew up poor or below average. But I remember one year I got a suit from the thrift store in one of those old school briefcase, the square ones. And I was a businessman for Halloween. That was my costume. So I always had it in me. My first business was I was 7 years old, and my uncle had bought me a lawnmower. And in the summer times, I would go up and down the street. I had business cards and everything. Go up and cut grass, shovel snow, rake leaves, take trash out, have yard sales every other weekend. My grandmother pretty much raised me, and she'd come pull up in the driveway, see her stuff out in the yard. Yeah, so I just knew that I wanted more, and I wanted to get out of my neighborhood where I grew up. And I just didn't like the fact that people will put a number on how much I'm worth.
Yeah,
I didn't want to trade. Yeah, I didn't want to trade dollars for hours or hours for dollars. So yeah, I knew that at an early age.
So how did you come upon like franchising? Because there's entrepreneurship, but how did that path kind of set itself forward?
Well, I did a program in college. I'm a part of this nonprofit organization called the 100 Black Men of Charlotte. And I did this I was in the collegiate chapter as well, like in college, and we did a program called Pathways to Success. In this program, we had the opportunity to intern with entrepreneurs and people in corporate America. And they just gave us a breakdown to kind of get an idea coming out of college which route we wanted to go. And I kind of already knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur, but that confirmed it. I did an internship with a guy that owned 7 Subways at the time. And I just saw his lifestyle and saw what he was doing, and I was intrigued. And after college, I actually got a job working for Subway as a business consultant. So that's how I really got into franchising, and it just kind of took it from there.
And so I'm always interested, because I know about it, like I've taught my son that like when we go into a Subway, I'm like, someone owns this. Like you can own a Subway. But of course, growing up, I thought McDonald's was just a corporation and one person owns McDonald's, right? You're not thinking about it being a franchise. Before you took that internship with him at Subway, what was your thought about companies like that?
I always knew, most people know when they think franchise, they think McDonald's. So I always knew certain franchises, but I was surprised to find out how many businesses out there are actually franchises. Like Meineke is a franchise. Like car care, it's a lot of home health care franchises, cleaning franchises. If you go to a shopping center, probably 90% of those stores in that shopping center is a franchise. Okay. And what I love about franchising, I know I get a lot of people reaching out to me that want to start a business and things like that. Like, it's not hard to go and get an LLC and register a business, but at the same, like, anyone can start a business, but how long is that business going to last, and is it successful? The great thing about franchising is you're buying into a proven concept. They already put the legwork in and made sure that it's successful and profitable. You're buying into a brand that's well known, so depending on the franchise that you buy, and most importantly, you're going into business for yourself, but not by yourself. So those royalties that you pay is worth it when you got that support system behind you. Because starting a business, I tell people all the time, the hardest part about starting a business is starting a business. That is tough to get it up and going and to be successful.
Right. So,
and you're doing it. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, you go ahead.
No, I said just when you're trying to start a business by yourself. It's tough.
Yeah.
So no, I just wanted to follow up because you mentioned like a lot of people reach out to you. So for those who are interested, like, okay, I might want to own a McDonald's or own some of the franchise. What are some of the things that people should be looking for or thinking about when they're going about that process of getting started and even like choosing a franchise?
Well, just getting started, I feel like if you are interested at all, just give me a call. Like, I do free consultations. Like, it's no charge to work with me. I get paid on the back end by the franchisor. So if you want to have that conversation just to get information, give me a call, or just go onto the website and submit a request and I will contact you. Mm-hmm. But as far as just what I do is basically you say, Cam, I have about $50,000 just sitting in my savings account, or however much it may be. And I want to put it to work. And I tell people all the time, I know we're talking about finances right now, and I can go into that as well. But like, you got all of this money just sitting in your savings account, not doing anything. And like, inflation is higher than the amount of interest you're making on your savings account. So you're losing money. You know what I'm saying? So I always tell people to put their money in some type of asset generating, you know, so is it whether it's real estate or a business or anything like that, or stock market, you know. But some people might reach out. It can be inheritance, it could be savings, anything like that. So they'll reach out to me and say, Cam, I got $50,000 in my savings account and I want to put it to work. And we'll start with, okay, so what industry are you looking in? I represent over 500 different franchises, so we could narrow it down based off your budget. So even though you got $50K, you can always, that's liquid, but you can always get an Sba loan. And I tell you people to try to save as much cash as you can, because you never know when you need to tap into that to cover some other expenses. What industry are you looking in? What are your passions or interests? Because you don't want to just invest in a franchise because it's lucrative. You got to have some type of interest or passion, or you're gonna get bored with it. You're gonna get burned out, you know. And then what's your budget? So we'll find a franchise in your industry that fits your budget, that's lucrative, and things like that. So we'll narrow it down to the perfect franchise for you.
Gotcha. Okay.
And so do you now, or have you ever owned a franchise yourself?
Absolutely. So actually, Mr. Franchise Guy is a franchise that I bought into, number one. And number two, I'm actually looking at, I come across all of these franchises in my portfolio, and I'm just looking for the right one. And I'm looking at one right now that I might be moving on over the summer.
Okay. And so I know some, people that listen to Divas and Ducats might have heard 50,000 and was like, that's sticker shock, right? Like, you really got that. So if that's what it takes to get into it, it might not be for me, right? So can you talk about like some of the variances in that startup cost? I guess in the franchise fee, but you were also talking about royalties, but that's kind of after you already got your business up. But in the beginning of the cost, like some of the ranges for that.
There's franchises that range from, franchise fee to get into the franchise from $5,000 all the way up to $1 million. Obviously, the more money you have, the more options you have.
Right.
But yeah, it just depends. Like, just because you got a little bit of money, I would tell you straight up, save your money and wait so we can get something that you really want. Don't just take your little bit of money just to say you own a franchise, you know. But yeah, it varies, but you can get in as low as $5,000.
And then also with because that's specifically for the franchise fee, right? There are other costs to get to that agreement and get going with the franchise, right? Like, what are some of the other costs that might be associated with outside of the franchise fee?
Well, it all depends on the franchise. So I just helped a friend invest in a franchise. It was a cleaning franchise, and I try to, especially now, you look for franchises with little overhead that doesn't require a lot of employees right now, because it's hard to get people to work. So he got a cleaning franchise, and he's going to start off doing most of the work himself, and then bring people on. So it cost him, I believe, $10K. Total investment for the franchise was $20, but they did financing. Some franchises offer financing where they'll help you pay the difference on the back end based off of your profits that you make. You can pay that back that way. For that cleaning franchise, that $10K was the franchise fee, and then it was probably like an extra $2,000 or $3,000 for supplies and materials and things like that.
Okay. And then I heard you talk about, like, so sometimes the actual, I guess, franchisor will help with some of the funding. And you mentioned Sba Loan, for example. So what are some of the funding options for someone that's going to need to kind of like supplement?
Absolutely. So the most common funding is SBA.
Okay.
So if your credit is good, if you don't have the financing, like liquid cash, but if you got good credit, I believe you need at least a 675 to get financing for SBA, and the interest rates are really low right now. But that's the most common way of funding. Some people do 401k rollover. You can do a HELOC, which is a home equity line of credit if you own a home. And what else? There's other ways as well, like just straight loans, just get loans from the bank, personal loans and things like that.
Right.
So,
and for a person that's not necessarily are not familiar with the SBA loan, what is that?
It's a small business administration loan. So you can go to your bank. We work with funding partners as well. So basically, it's a loan that you can get from the Small Business Administration. They just focus on small businesses. Yes, ma'am. But another thing, this guy, I'm sorry to go off track. I know. I'm headed back to Miami, but I just helped this guy not too long ago. He opened up 3 Smoothie Kings locations, and I was with him about 2 or 3 months ago, and he was a manager at a Smoothie King. And what he did was he connected with some investors. So it's all about who you know. So he went from a manager to partnering with these investors and opening up 3 locations down in the Miami area. So if you're a hard worker and you want to run the operations of the business, a lot of people with the big money, they want to look at it as an investment. They don't necessarily want to quit their day job, like the doctors and the lawyers or something like that. But they got somebody that they know will run the operations and do it well. They will be invest the money and be the funding behind it, and then that person will be the one that's running the operations of the franchise. So that's a great way right there if you know the right people.
And with that, we strongly recommend, definitely, in our background, we strongly recommend you make sure you have good contracts. When you're dealing with investors, to make sure that their interest protected, your interest is protected. In doing that. But like you said, when people are putting up $20,000-$30,000, they're gonna do that anyway, or more. They're gonna do that anyway. But make sure that if you do go the investor route, that you're making sure that you're covered through contracts. And that will be outside of the franchise, because the franchise, they want their franchise fee. They don't, how you got the money to the table. Sometimes they really care, but if you got investors, they not creating those contracts for your investors. So
absolutely.
So what does this franchise fee that you speak of, what does that cover?
So the franchise fee basically just covers the right to own a portion or the brand name in that franchise. So you own a territory. So if I was to buy a franchise in Charlotte for McDonald's, for example, bought into that fee stands that I bought into that company or that franchise in this area. And no one else can have that. You know what I mean? Sometimes it covers your training, your onboarding, things like that. It's all included in the total investment of the franchise, but that just gives you the right to the name that say that you are a franchisee.
Gotcha. Okay.
And with the franchises, because like you said, they are, a company, usually an established company that they know the plans and all of those things. Typically, how long, once you sign that franchise fee, does it take to actually get the building or the business up and running? Because you were saying the guy about 3 Smoothie Kings. Like, are they gonna be staggered? Are they gonna all open at one time, or?
No. So if you're building, all right, so number one, it all depends on the franchise that you invest in.
Right. So
we're using Smoothie King as an example. They usually have a timeline in your franchise disclosure on when you are supposed to open up your second and your third. You don't do them all at one time. You'll open up your first one, and they say you have within a year to open up your second, or 2 years, and then to open up your third. So it's spaced out. You want to get your first one up and going before you can do the second and the third, just to prove that you are worthy of running a successful franchise. You know, you don't want to be overwhelmed and do too many at one time. But my one guy who did the cleaning franchise, he invested last month and he will be open for business this month.
Wow.
Yep. He just got to get his LLC, his license, insurance, things like that. And then, that's a quick turnaround.
Okay. And so with that business, did it require a building or it's not?
The cleaning franchise?
Yeah.
No, just say either a truck or van.
Okay. 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 Yeah, because I was thinking that's a really quick turnaround.
Yeah.
So for those, I think people, when they think about starting a business, they think about being profitable, or they see, social media, they see the highlight reel, right? But they don't really see the process and the time that it takes to actually get in the black, to be making money, to, making a profit. So I know there's no one size fits all, but like generally, like how long does it take in this whole process for a person to see a profit, or for that to start becoming, I guess, their norm?
Again, I would say it all depends on the franchise. Number one, on average for any business, you should be happy if you break even the first year. But yeah, some of them you are profitable right away. And it depends on if you are doing this as a passive type of thing or you all in. So some people invest in a franchise and they hire someone to run their business for them and they keep their day job, or they're just doing the franchise part-time and doing their job full-time. No one's going. It all depends on how much you put into the franchise. All in, you'll see a return quicker. So I'm looking at the franchise that I was mentioning earlier. I was looking at Anytime Fitness. So with that Anytime Fitness, I can hire a GM to run it, but if I'm the GM that first year, that's $50K right there that I don't have to pay a salary to a GM. That's going back into my business or into myself. And even though this GM is great, nobody's going to run my business the way I'm going to run my business. So I'm going to make sure I get as many members into my business as possible. And the goal is to pay down that loan that you took out. And once that loan is paid off, then the profits come. And then at that point, you buy another one. And then that first location is paying for the second one. You just got to keep growing. That's how it works.
Right, because the SBA loan, I mean, it is a loan and it does have its terms too of repayment and the time period of when it has to be repaid, which typically isn't, they're shorter terms, right? They're not like the 30-year mortgage terms. They're usually shorter terms. So that's also something you want to be aware of.
They're shorter terms, but at the same time, unlike just a personal loan or anything like that, the great thing about SBA loans is you don't have to make your first payment until you open your doors of your business. So if it takes 3 to 6 months before you actually open for business, you're not making loan payments at that time. So that helps out a lot.
Yeah, that does.
Yeah, for sure.
And so let's talk about some of the challenges, because we talked about like how to get into it and some of the costs that you might need depending on how much your franchise fee is and any other associated costs, right, to get to that agreement. But especially and that's why I asked if that cleaning business had needed a building, right? Because for those that like the Smoothie Kings, where you need store and real estate in this market, in these times it's hard to find real estate, right? So you've signed your franchise agreement, but maybe you can't get it up and running because the requirements of whatever that business is, or the requirements of whatever that building is, you just can't find it. So in those, have you come across those situations, and have you ever had or heard from any of the people that you've helped get into franchises where they've had to maybe forfeit their franchise fee because they didn't open it within the time period of the agreement?
Oh no, so like they would like you to open within a certain time, but they're not going to force you to open something if nothing's available. So the franchise will help you find your location. They have a team for that. They would do a heat map to say, okay, in this area, we have this many people in this city based off of population. So you are not allowed to open a certain franchise if there's not a certain amount of people in that population that makes a certain amount of money. That's how you know if you're going to be profitable or not. They look at the competition in the area and things like that. So they're going to make sure you find the right spot. They're not just going to let you open up a franchise in the middle of nowhere so you can fail, So if that takes time, it's just going to take time. I had someone that bought a chicken. It's called Chicken Cone. It's really dope. I can't wait. It's coming to Charlotte. And she invested into the franchise last year, and it's not open yet. So they're still, so just to get an idea on how that works. Right now, I guess real estate is kind of tough. I know during 2020, if you were looking to invest in a franchise, I know a lot of people were worried because of the pandemic, but unfortunately, there was a lot of good commercial real estate available because a lot of businesses were closing. So it was an opportunity to hop on some good real estate, and the landlords were willing to work with you to fill that space. So yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Well, that's nice. They set you up to be successful, right? Yeah.
So what are some other challenges people might need to consider outside of, of course, being approved for SBA loan and making sure that their ducats are in a row with the, credit and all of those things before they kind of go into franchise, especially if they want to look into the SBA loan route versus an investor route. What are some other challenges that you see?
Just a lot of people come to me. Some people have money, some people don't. And just because you have money doesn't mean you can get a franchise. Like, you are awarded a franchise. You got to go through a process to get the franchise. It's my job to make sure that you are a good fit for them and they are a good fit for you.
Right. Just
because you got money, a franchise is not going to award you a franchise if you don't have the skill and the determination to be successful, because it's just like Mr. Franchise Guy. If I decided to franchise my business, I'm not going to let anybody take my baby, what I worked hard to build, and it's a brand name. It's their job to protect the brand and just give it to somebody that's going to run it into the ground. Because how you said you went to Subway, and you went to that Subway, if that Subway was nasty or had roaches or something like that, if you didn't know that was a franchise, you would think that Subway, period. You're going to get all Subways like that. And not just that's a franchise, and that's the owner's friend. So it's a franchisor's job to protect their brand. So they're not going to give it to anyone.
Yeah.
From your experience, like with the franchises, because like you said, with protecting the brand, like if there is an owner that's kind of nasty, for lack of better, they're not clean and there's complaints with them,
it's janky. Let's just call it.
Does the corporate Subway, in this instance, we're talking about Subway, does Subway come and make visits to the franchise owners to make sure that they're kind of in par with contractual requirements?
Absolutely. So that was actually my job when I worked for Subway as a business consultant. I would visit the Subway franchisees every month to make sure they're in compliance with corporate standards. And if they're not, it's only so many times where I can write them out of compliance where they can actually they'll get fined and they can lose their franchise.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Accountability. I like it.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
So did you have any other questions?
I really don't. I thought this was a wealth of knowledge, and to those who are interested, I certainly would tell them to reach out to you. So I'm just, if you feel comfortable sharing, like, where can the people find you?
I kept it really simple. It's just MrFranchiseGuy.com. It's Mr. Franchise Guy on Instagram, Mr. Franchise Guy on Facebook. You can reach me at any of those platforms. Yeah, just reach out to me. I love talking about this stuff. I love helping people get out of corporate America. I just heard a statistic today where before the pandemic, during the pandemic, they thought about 15% of people would not go back to work. And now they found out that it's 50% don't want to go back to work. And that just shows how many people go back into the office. And it just shows how many people do not want to go back to their day job, so
don't want to go back to the office.
Nobody want to go back to the office. So so this was a perfect opportunity for people to sit back and plan and think and come up with their next move during the pandemic. So and now, absolutely. So I just say reach out to me on any of those platforms. Like I said, it doesn't cost anything to have a conversation.
All right. And we will have that information in the show notes, of course, so you don't have to like scribble real quick if you didn't catch it.
Well, we appreciate you coming on for sure. And we will, you know, like I said, if people have additional questions about franchising, is definitely another avenue to be able to start your journey or continue your journey of building your investment portfolio in your generational wealth as well. But make sure that you are doing, like you said, research. Make sure you're getting with a consultant that when you're choosing a consultant, making sure that there's someone that's open communication and that they're willing to get back with you and keeping open, constant communication, because there's nothing more frustrating when you're trying to invest your money than getting silence on the other end, right? Or even on y'all's end when you're asking for information and they're silent, right?
That part.
So it just making sure that you're having that open back and forth communication, because it is an investment, and you want to see a return on your investment, right? That is the whole purpose. So make sure that you reach out to him if you have any additional questions. Like Leandra said, we will definitely have his information in the notes below, and we appreciate you coming on, Cameo.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Bye.
All right, y'all. You want to get into something?
Yes.
Okay. So we have a Dear Diva. This is part of our segment. If you have questions, comments, concerns, shenanigans, you can email us divaadvice@gmail.com. DIVAADVICE @gmail.com. So today's letter goes, Dear Divas, I've been married for about 3 years now, and I've been struggling to lose weight. Weight has always been a struggle, but the stress of trying for a child unsuccessfully and the medications has added some of the pounds on. So much so that my husband no longer seems to be attracted to me. Our intimacy has taken a downward turn, and when I speak to him, he says he still finds me attractive, but just isn't into things anymore because it's been all about having a baby for the last couple years and takes away from enjoying each other. He's offered to pay for surgery if I wanted it. But I've been turned off by the idea, especially since he's recently announced he no longer wants to try for kids. I've always wanted to be a mom, so this is devastating, but I must admit the fertility issues have taken a toll on the marriage, and I do want to be married. Should I take him up on the surgery? Would that be cheating? Should I abandon the idea of children? Would you give that up to save your marriage? Signed, Anonymous.
Well, first, I'm sorry that you're going through that. That really, that sucks, honestly. But I think it may be more common than people think. Yeah. Because I've heard, you know, I've had a friend that has gone through IVF, and the toll that it takes on, it changes you. It changes you when you're going through that, especially if it's not successful the very first time, right? Yeah. So it does change you. I can definitely understand the strain it would put on both couples, and I feel like there's a pain that's probably coming from your husband versus him just like it's just like he feels defeated more so of just not necessarily really believing that he doesn't want any more children. He just doesn't want to go through that anymore, right? It could just be a point of being tired, and like he said, he just kind of misses his wife, right? Versus the cycles and the pills and all that you have to do, the shots, the doctor visits, the checks. It's just it's just a lot. And I don't know if you guys go to a therapist, especially that maybe specializes in those areas, because it's a, I'm not going to even call it a unique experience, because I do think the more that we talk about it, the more people I realize deal with fertility issues. So but being able to talk to a therapist in that, I definitely think would help with some more of the feeling of defeat and pain that he might be feeling. And then, like you said, you're going through all of this, trying to do something for not only yourself, but your family, for your husband. And, you also have to deal with the feelings of rejection because, again, you're trying to bring life, and now someone that you love is no longer really he didn't necessarily say he wasn't attracted to you, but
I think he was saying like the intimacy has become, because think about when you're trying to have a kid, it's probably like it's go time, it's no longer like enjoy. It feels like a job more so than like I'm being with my when anything, like when anything becomes, you can enjoy cooking, but if someone like expects you to cook, and it you lose the joy out of it. So maybe just try to find
ways that I don't know how, because I know when you're paying all that money, you need to be on your schedule, and because it's thousands, tens of thousands of dollars. But maybe finding ways to be intimate in other areas that are completely outside of sex, because obviously that moment has now been turned into something that seems almost penal in nature, like it's So I just maybe, I don't know, just try to find other ways. As far as the surgery is concerned, I honestly, when you said it, I just thought, would that affect your medical with the IVF? Like, I would first ask a doctor if you could even have surgery, because it is moving things on the inside of your body. So I don't even know if that is an option while you're going through IVF. So I would talk about that. As far as, is it cheating? No, I definitely don't feel like it's cheating. If it's something that you desire, I definitely would never cut open my body and get surgery, plastic surgery for no man. I'm sorry, husband or otherwise, because that's your body, right? You the one got to go and get put to sleep and take all those risks. I'm not doing that for nobody else besides something I desire to do. So if that's something you desire to do, and your doctor says it's okay and it's not going to affect the IVF, I definitely don't think it's cheating. You shouldn't have that guilt, but just also definitely check your reasons for why you want to do it, because if you're doing it solely for him, you're not going to be happy afterwards. Right? And that's a very expensive way to make yourself unhappy.
That's real.
So did I not answer something?
Yeah. Would you give up having kids to save your marriage?
I think, again, I will go to a therapist first to understand if that's really the desire. If it truly had turned into he does not want children anymore, and I don't know. I just don't see how people can. I don't know. It's hard to answer that question, because I don't feel like the underlying thing is that he doesn't want children. But if it became, I don't want children, like adoption is no longer even an option, like other avenues are no longer even an option, I'm just done with kids, I just want my wife, or be done with it. One, I would think it would depend on your age. But that's just hard to answer. It would depend on how long. I couldn't see being married to someone 15 years and just being willing to throw them to the side, because you know, we tried. He's tried to go down the avenue. Not like he said that from jump. You know, we've tried. It hasn't worked, and now he's just exhausted. Like, no, I'm not about to get a divorce because you can't do it anymore. You know. But if we, 6 months in the game.
Got you.
That's different for me. That's different.
She's 3 years in
right. That's a little different for me. But no, I can't see someone that's gone through the struggle, cried with me, gone to all these appointments, and just is depleted, and it's like, I can't do it anymore. And me being like, well, you gotta go. I gotta find someone that can.
I got you.
No.
I got you. So similar answers. Let's see. Okay. Should I take him up on the surgery? So now, again, like you said, make sure that it is safe for you to do so. I'm not sure if you're going through a cycle or not. So assuming that you're not, if you want the surgery and you've been having issues and you want a little nip tuck, little whatever, like I really don't shame folks who have surgery or take that route, just because I know, especially as a woman, it is hard, especially at a certain one. As you get older, it doesn't get any easier. So I'm not gonna say like, oh, don't have the surgery. Now, I am a proponent of don't be lying. Like, don't be that chick that got a BBL and be like, oh, this all me. I'm not a fan of that. But like I said, I don't shame, if that's what you want to do and he's supporting it, go for it. Assuming that it's safe. I don't think it's cheating, because I will say, for every, lipo, tuck, whatever I've heard of, you still have to exercise and maintain a certain diet in order to maintain that. So it's not like, right. So it's not like you can do it and then forever you just out here snatch. Like, you have to maintain that. So I don't view it as cheating, but again, this is your body. You shouldn't care what I think anyway. To your point, I think sometimes people just get exhausted. I think going through those cycles, the more you go through, it is draining. I, full disclosure, recently did cryopreservation. I got my eggs frozen, and that was not nearly as long as a, IVF cycle. And it was exhausting. It's a lot that goes into that. There's a lot of shots. It's a lot that goes on. Your body does change. It's, you're bloated, all of the things. So it's a lot. Yeah. So I understand that. I would definitely clarify with him. And do you just not want to keep trying to have a biological child, or do you no longer want children? Right. Because I think that's two different things. Like, to me, maybe a compromise could be adoption, even like in the meantime fostering. There's plenty of kids that need that. It's like, so if those things are on the table, maybe consider that. It is a lot less toll on your body. I'm definitely a proponent for therapy, since you all have been through a lot. I take marriage very seriously. So I can't do just divorce him, just break up, because it's not like that's your boyfriend, like just break up with him. And I think time does have its place. It can't be the only thing that keeps you there. But I will say, if you are adamant that you want children and he is adamant that he does not, one of you has to settle within your mind that solution, because you cannot have half a child. Right. And that's not one of those things that there's really a compromise. It's black or it's white. And so I would really get clear on that. And like Quick said, the therapy, just to deal with the trauma and the grief, frankly, from not getting the outcome that you've wanted, and clarity on what motherhood or fatherhood looks like, because you're not less of a mother or less of a father if they're not biologically yours. There's plenty of mothers and fathers out here that are doing a lot more than the people who actually birthed them. So don't, let that, if that's an option, don't let that make you feel less than because that child did not come from your body. So definitely
do not let people shame you for that.
Please. Okay. So definitely good luck with that. Let us know how it goes. divaadvice@gmail.com.
Right in. Well, that was this episode. We thank you for following us and tuning in. If you are on Instagram and Facebook, please be sure to follow us and subscribe. Again, if you made it to the end of this episode and you have not hit that button below, what are you waiting for?
What's the problem?
Go ahead and hit that bell so you can be notified of when episodes come out. If you're on Instagram and Facebook, make sure that you're following us. And also, as you just heard, we have our Divas Letters. If you need to write in about something that is financial related, or just need to be talking about how life's
just questions.
Right. You can write in to divaadvice@gmail.com. DIVAADVICE.
There you go.
gmail.com.
All right, y'all. In the meantime, in between time,
have a great attitude.
Bye.
Bye.